evening. I'm Shari Worthington, and we are beginning the Entrepreneurial Communications and Influence class. And before we get into all the fun part, the marketing and the sales and the networking, we really need to stop and think about business models. So tonight we're going to start our discussion about business models. And business models really are all about what's the core of the business. Now, why do we need to know what the core of the business is? Why can't we just jump in and start creating advertisements and TV, infomercials and things like that? Anybody? No, exactly, because I don't know what I'm saying unless I know what's the actual core of the business. So we're going to talk about that. So before we do that, let's talk about a challenge that most businesses face and why there is such an intriguing opportunity, such an interesting opportunity for entrepreneurial ventures. So the typical, we're going to go into the innovation. We're going to look at innovation within the corporation. And as you see on the slide, we have three components. The typical organization, whether it's a corporation or a not-for-profit, really doesn't matter if it's for-profit or not. It really focuses on three things. The first one is ongoing operations. All right, so I know how to do something, I know how to make something, I know how to deliver a service, and I need to keep improving how I do it. So I need to keep pushing that out the door, more product, more service, get more customers, and along the way, I'm going to do some incremental improvements because I don't want my competitors to catch up to me, right? So I have to do some incremental improvements that feed back into making this a better product or service. The problem is that this leaves no time for what turns out is really the most critical piece of any business, which is the innovation part. All right, so incremental improvements are not innovation. We're talking here radical innovation, something that really changes the game in an industry. Again, when Kiva and organizations like that came online to provide fundraising for students who want to go on trips, the whole crowdsourcing thing really changed the name of the game for fundraising. It pulled it out of the hands of the SEC and put it into the hands of individuals. Small donations actually mean a lot to some people. You don't necessarily need millions. So the problem is most organizations don't have time for innovation. What that ends up translating into is that we leave an opportunity for other companies to catch us by surprise. And what I want to talk about for a minute here is disruptive innovation, right? Because as we go through this course, we're going to be talking messaging and sales channels and all sorts of interesting things like that. But we're going to be doing it in the context of businesses that we're analyzing here. So we need to be thinking all the time about what can we do better for our customers? What better value can we deliver? And this is going to tie directly into the business model canvas. So if we look at disruptive innovation, we have a graph here. This is the performance of a particular product, let's say cell phones, all right? And this is time, all right? And this is the amount of performance the customer typically wants, and it increases over time, right? As technology gets better, companies get smarter about how they put all these things together. So these are expectations of customers. This is what I want. And so we have someone, let's go back in time to the beginnings of the cell phone era. We have someone like Motorola, right? The old flip phones, they owned that market. So Motorola started out with, kind of some less than ideal phones, but over time, they managed to meet customer expectations and then start to exceed it. They got fancier phones and they get rid of the flip and they went to a single design. But what happened to Motorola over time? Anybody know what happened to Motorola?
They didn't keep their innovation going.
They didn't. And where did they end up? The Motorola cell phone division no longer exists anymore. Any idea where it ended up? Google bought it. A few years ago, Google bought the cell phone division, all right, and tried to reinvigorate it. Why? So why did Motorola lose this race here when it was doing what it was supposed to be doing, right? It was doing incremental innovations, making the product better. It was beyond customer expectations. This is great. What happened though is something kind of crept out of the woodwork in a parallel path, again, starting below customer expectations, but it was a disruptive innovation. You remember?
Was it the smartphone?
Yeah, before the smartphone even. The smartphone's going to come way down here. Remember the Palm Pilot?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, exactly. Palm Pilot. So they came along and they put a calendar. So they ignored the phone function and they put a calendar, an activity planner, and a bunch of little desktop type functions into a portable device. And it wasn't really what these customers were looking for to start. But over time, what happened? We all of a sudden ended up, this gained in popularity, so people had a phone and a Palm Pilot, and then what happened?
Smartphone.
The smartphone. So then the smartphones came along. Again, when they first came out, they were clunky, their battery life was awful, so people weren't particularly thrilled with them. But it started below customer expectations, but they quickly innovated to the point where they wiped out Palm and they wiped out Motorola's cell phone division. So Motorola was ignoring the disruptive innovation potential in the market around it. So technology was advancing in leaps and bounds and they missed this part. So now we've got a problem and all of a sudden, so this is disruptive innovation. So this is why we study the business model to make sure that we're keeping on track for not only what's good for our existing customers, but for what we can do in the future to make sure we don't just die off. And that's a common problem. Forbes magazine had an article recently, 250,000 new products are introduced each year. The failure rate, you want to guess at the failure rate of those?
Very high.
Yeah, 85 to 95%. All right, so it's incredibly high. That means, so that you might think, oh man, I have no chance at all. No, you actually do, and that's why we have these tools that we use, like the business model canvas, to help us actually create something that's solid, that's sustainable, that's differentiated from the competition, and therefore we can keep on rising and doing good things. All right, so so a little quiz here. Do you know who the first online bookseller was?
Amazon?
Good guess. It was not Amazon. Amazon's been around a long time, 94. Actually, it was books.com. Any idea what happened to books.com?
They're probably gone.
They are long gone. What happened is they quickly got run over by Amazon, and Barnes & Noble bought them and just integrated it into their own service. But it was a very rudimentary site with some text and some links to books, and e-commerce was very new back then, so it wasn't beautiful. But Amazon learned fast. So one of the things we're also going to talk about is lean startups and how we learn fast, fail fast, and then learn from our failures, and then make corrections. So we'll then pivot, or we'll make some kind of correction that will get us further on. So how about the first MP3 player? Anybody know? Yeah, so Sony. Sony's a good guess, but no, not Sony. Apple, no, not Apple. Apple's one of the best known ones right now. It's a company called Sihan Information Systems out of the Pacific Rim, and they just disappeared in no time. Right? They came out, they were a year or so ahead, but by the time Apple then was a fast follower, came out with their iPod, that quickly took over the market. And then when Apple had the iPod plus iTunes, that was a powerful combination that could not be beat. And they're now generating billions of dollars per year for all their content providers. And it's funny, Apple originally, when they set this up, said that they are not there to make money off iTunes. That's there for the third parties, the people who write books and videos and all this good stuff. Turns out they can't help but make money now. It's so popular. So Apple's making billions, but the content providers are making billions as well. So it really is an interesting example of how everybody is winning. All right, so let's talk about the business model canvas, and we're just going to show you a quick view of that One more. There we go. So let's look at the business model canvas. And what the business model canvas comes down to is 9 building blocks that help you understand the core pieces of your business. The main part is the value proposition. All right, value proposition. What do you think we mean by value proposition? Yep, we're delivering some kind of value. What's the perspective on the value? Who's the value for?
The customer.
Exactly. So our value proposition is not about are things hunky-dory for me, the company providing it. It's all about the customers. All right, so 2 of the core pieces of the business model canvas are the customer segments and the value proposition that we deliver to them. So what are we doing that's valuable? So when the iPod, iTunes combination came into being, right, prior to that, I don't know if many of you remember because you're awfully young, iPods required a lot of finagling to get the music onto them. It was a pain in the butt, and a lot of people as a result didn't use them. But iTunes came along, and now it was a quick and smooth way to get your music on there. So it was quick, it was easy, it was convenient, and you had a large selection of music options, right? And prior to that, prior to iTunes, we had an issue. Anybody remember a company called Napster?
Yes.
You know what Napster was?
No.
So Napster is peer-to-peer file sharing. You know those free files that you download, right? So people put music out there, they put videos, TV shows, whatever. Napster was all about peer-to-peer, so person-to-person file sharing. Napster had an ugly end, and who do you think would be upset at Napster and the way they were doing things?
The buyers.
The
customers.
No, the customer would be the person downloading the file. So who would be upset?
So the company.
The content owners, right? So the people who own the music actually were like, oh, okay, this isn't going to work. You're actually violating our copyright, and you are giving away our stuff we make money from for free. So Napster got killed by a bunch of lawyers right before the iPod iTunes combination came out, and no one but Steve Jobs could actually do what happened at that point. Napster had just died, so Hollywood and the music producers were all going, we are kings of the world, us and all our billions of lawyers who took Napster down. Napster was very popular. And so we don't have to worry about it. But the problem was, what Napster showed is there was a demand for digital music. The demand was there. The ultimate end user customer wanted digital music. Somebody needed to provide it. So Steve Jobs came out with iTunes, hadn't introduced it yet. So first he went down to Hollywood and the music producers and he said, you know what? You guys have a problem. You need to figure out how to live in this digital world, and I've got a way for us all to make money. You'll make money, the other third-party content providers will make money, and it'll be a win-win for everyone. And I think only Steve Jobs would have the power to be able to get away with that. But sure enough, he did. He signed contracts with the music producers. They said, okay, let's give this a try. They ended up seeing monstrous amounts of downloads, and new things happened, like people downloaded individual songs, not just albums. They ended up making more money because people were willing to test out the market and spend money there. So what we're looking at here is when Jobs went down to Hollywood and did the, okay, yay, we're great, what he did is he created a partnership, a new partnership, which is another piece of the business model canvas. All right, so I think we are at time right now. What we're going to do is break up into groups, and we're going to actually work through the business model canvas, all the details for the Apple iPod iTunes combination when it was introduced, and then we're going to look at it today and compare that and look at it in the context of disruptive innovation, and then what kind of messages was Apple sending out to get back to the communications part of the class. Thank you very much. Have a great day.